Greetings once again from the illustrious studios of the Casa de Single Wide News. This is your humble reporter Leroy speaking. It's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. Well, to get off of politics for a minute, Jacob Blake, the black gentleman in Kenosha, Wisconsin, I believe it was, that was shot several times because he was struggling with police. His ex-girlfriend, mama of his children, called the police. He was trying to steal a vehicle from her with the kids in it that she had custody of. He also, I believe, digitally raped her at some point during this, and this wasn't his first offense. Not known for being a real nice guy. Now, he struggled with the police. They tased him a couple of times, and that didn't seem to do any good. He just had an interview, and he admitted that he had a knife. And he picked the knife up and was going towards his vehicle. It's what he said. And the police kept telling him, drop the knife. Drop the knife. Drop the knife. And he didn't drop the knife. He turned around, supposedly, according to one officer, with the knife in his hand, and they shot him 7 times. Now, people will say, well, he had a knife. They had guns. He was effectively unarmed. This is a little cheap $8 pocket knife. It's not a switchblade. How long does it take to open it? That long. If you're closer to 20 feet to a policeman and you have a knife and they tell you to put it down and you don't, they are going to shoot to kill you. That's what they are trained to do, because I'm old, fat, and slow. And if I'm 20 feet from somebody and they don't have their gun drawn, I can open a knife and stab them before they clear the holster. That's what the cops know. That's what they're trained to do. And there's a reason for it. Because their number one objective is to get home alive. So don't be stupid. He wasn't unarmed. He wasn't not dangerous. He was stupid. And he got himself shot. He's lucky to be alive. I think he's getting millions of freaking dollars. He's stuck in a wheelchair. I hate it for the guy. I do. But the cops did what they were trained to do. So, you know, going to burn down the city and loot and raid. No, we're going to get reparations from the shoe store, some stupid crap. You're not fooling anybody. You're just a bunch of dang thieves. And I hope they arrest every blame one of you. Okay. That subject's over with. I briefly mentioned in my last video that Joe Biden did actually get sworn in as president, as totally illegal as I think the election was. It is what it is. He got away with it. Best I can tell. I just can't put it any other way. I was hopeful that that wouldn't happen, but that's what happened. So we have broken the tapioca pudding ceiling, and we have the first fully senile president walking into office in American history. day one. And I know people are going to get mad at me. Senility's no joke. I know it's not a joke. I completely and totally know it's not a joke. My mother had early Alzheimer's. She was diagnosed with it in her late 30s. She died before she was 50. I watched that happen. My sister died at age 50. She had early Alzheimer's, early dementia. My brother, my younger brother, died at age 48 with early dementia. I know the signs, I know the symptoms. I was saying this the whole time he was running. This guy's losing it. Now, I don't know who the puppet master is behind Biden, but he's not running a thing. He does good to complete a sentence. He has to have teleprompters. He had teleprompters to answer questions from talk show hosts, late night talk show hosts. He can't answer questions to the press. Even the complex one, about the most complex ones he can handle is, what flavor ice cream did you get? They're not going to ask him about his son and his dealings with China, where Joe took him over on Air Force Two and his son cut a deal for $1.5 billion from a Chinese banker to invest in a hedge fund, which Hunter had no experience in. He got millions of dollars from Ukraine, from Burisma. He got one installment of $3.5 million from the ex-mayor's wife of Moscow, and then another $500,000 after that. And he's been under investigation excuse me, for over 2 years. The hard drive that came out of a laptop that was water damaged and given to this repair shop, Hunter never picked it up. So the repair shop owner saw what was on it, including kiddie porn, with Hunter involved in it, including drug use and hookers and all that stuff. But worse than all that, as far as President Potato Brain is concerned, was the emails dealing with all of these different companies: China, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, the deals with Russia, and so on and so forth. Because there was emails that implicated Joe as knowing what was going on. And this money's getting filtered back through the family. And one of them said that the big guy, which Mr. Bobolinsky, who was in the email chain, said, "That's Joe." There's another partner that's now in prison that turned evidence and said, "Yeah, that's Joe. He knew about it the whole time. He was not just knew about it, he was involved." Excuse me. He was involved with it. So that's who we've got as our tapioca brain in chief. Now, it's funny that Obama, a while back, I believe he was talking to Stephen Colbert and kind of joked and quipped, it'd be nice if I had just sort of a place setting, an office where I could sit in my basement in my, jogging pants and talk to him through an earpiece and get me a third term. I think he's got that in potato brain. So that's just a mess. That's just a flippin' mess. It's a nightmare now, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. They'll probably 25th Amendment him soon because they can't keep up pretenses. He can't answer even simple questions from reporters. He gets angry and storms off. That's already happened. It's going to happen more. He's going to be hiding Biden until they can bump him out. And then we got heels up Harris, camel toe Harris. What's her name? I don't know. Whatever. She'll end up stepping into his shoes. And I don't know what's worse, whether she'll be doing the thinking or somebody's controlling her. I have no idea. Anyway, there was something else I mentioned in my last video, and I was talking about the corporation, the United States as a corporation, as this Washington, D.C. incorporated entity, and how that came about. It actually started before 1871. It started with the 14th Amendment. Now, this was after Abraham Lincoln had been killed and Andrew Johnson, the Democrat vice president, took over. Okay, they had literally had to, in order to get the 14th Amendment passed, they literally had Republicans run out at gunpoint, and they put in rump representatives to make a vote for them because they wouldn't vote for this thing. Now, you read it and you think, well, this just gives black people citizenship. Because the 13th Amendment freed them, but it didn't give them citizenship. Well, sort of. Sort of. Everyone else in the country, the white people, the whoever had, the free blacks, all this stuff prior to slavery, they were first a resident of their state, individual state, and then a resident of the United States as a collective. The 14th Amendment made the newly freed slaves and their ancestors thereafter not citizens of the individual states, but of the United States itself. And then in 1871, they made the United States government entity a corporate entity. Now, what happened here was, this sounds okay, well, they're not residents of the state. They're essentially owned and protected by the federal government, a protected class of people, so to speak. What this also did was made a corporate person. So now all corporations were persons. I think it was nearly 90% of the cases brought under the 14th Amendment weren't newly freed slaves and their ancestors. They were corporations that were demanding rights equal to the people. Now, corporations owe their existence and charter powers to the state, to the government entity. So, Washington, D.C. is like its own nation state just like London, England is a nation state that is not really part of England. It is its own independent entity, and Vatican City is another one. I believe Paris, France may be the same way, but the three big ones I just mentioned. And they take care of the religious power, they take care of the monetary power, and they take care of the military power. I'll let you sort those out. Now, so there was this protected second-class citizenry, at least starting in 1871. Now, in 1907, the banks failed. There was a run on the banks. You used to pay the banks to keep your gold safe, and they would give you claim checks, and you could go back and redeem your gold. People started trading the claim checks around, and that was sort of the first paper money in the U.S. Well, the bankers came to realize that only about 10% of the gold ever actually left the place, and people were just trading claim checks. So the banks, instead of just loaning out the money that was actually theirs, what the people had paid them to keep their money safe, they started loaning claim checks to people, money that they didn't actually have. Well, the people caught on to this eventually, and they decided they wanted their gold, so a bunch of them made runs on the banks to get their gold, and there wasn't enough gold to go around. A bunch of people went broke. So, in 1910, a bunch of these banksters got together on Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia, and they devised a plan to make a private banking system for the entirety of the United States, or actually for the corporate United States in D.C. With me so far? Well, they first presented it as the Aldrich plan, but Aldrich was a rich, not particularly well-liked individual by the people, and the plan didn't go through, so they changed the name of it, and they scrolled a few things back, and they knew they could fix it up later and make make something very, very profitable. So they made the Federal Reserve System. Well, in 1913, they pushed that through at Christmas. Christmas time, when most everybody had gone home for the holidays, and supposedly it was ratified. However, Bill Benson did some research and went to each of the state's archives that existed at the time, and found that the Federal Reserve Act, the 16th Amendment, was never actually ratified by the states. So, it was, the book is called The Law That Never Was. So, anyway, in practice, it went through, and basically what it did was said the federal government can borrow all of the money that they want without restriction from the Federal Reserve Bank, a private banking cartel, and all they had to do is pay back the interest. Never said anything about paying back what was actually borrowed, just the interest on what was borrowed. And that's also when the income tax started, and it was just going to be a 1% tax on the very, very rich. Everybody else was going to be off the hook. Well, it only took 20 years. If you've ever had credit cards, you know what gets you. It's not the principal. It's not what you borrowed. It's not what you bought. It's the interest on what you bought that burns you a new one. So by 1933, the federal government was declared bankrupt and insolvent by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And they demanded all the people give them their gold. So then they called it a fractional reserve system, where we've only got to keep 10% of what we say we have the ability to lend out, be it to government or individuals through these individual banks. They just had to have 10% on reserve in gold. So they get to charge interest on money that is created out of thin air. Pretty good deal if you got it. And the government, which used to, instead of having an income tax for the people, if they wanted to build a bridge over some river that was going to help, interstate commerce or whatever, they had to essentially present that to the people, present it to the states. It's called the rule of apportionment. And people voted on whether they thought that project was worth them paying taxes for or not. The government had to clear their spending with the people before they spent it. Well, this released the government from having to do that. Now, in 1971, there were some French ships that kind of parked off the coast of New York, I believe it was, and they wanted their gold out of Fort Knox. They had a bunch that they had stored there, and they just wanted to go ahead and collect the gold because they was kind of thinking that maybe something shady was going on there. And Richard Nixon told them to get screwed. And he took us completely off of the gold standard. And now, since 1971, there is nothing in reserve. It is based on the full faith of the people that piece of paper is going to be worth buying something. And so far it is, although it's lost about 99% of its value. So what these people are talking about as far as some sort of a military intervention to restore us to a lawful government that is no longer dependent on this independent banking cartel to essentially steal the worth of everything. I mean, they own deed and title to everything, even your birth certificate. See, in 1933, your birth certificate was put up. You didn't have birth certificates before then. Only black people after slavery did, because they were owned by the state. What you had was a certificate of live birth. This birth certificate is a deed of ownership. And it doesn't belong to your parents. It belongs to the state. And the state puts that up as collateral to borrow money against what they think you'll be making. And it's actually traded back and forth as a bond as you get older and so on and so forth. And they trade, and they make, there's individuals that make millions of dollars off of you, and you have no idea about it. All this stuff is listed on the back of the original. You have a bond tracking number on the back of these birth certificates, and if you want a copy of your birth certificate, you get a copy of the front of it. You don't get the copy of the back, and who essentially owns you and owns everything. You know, don't pay taxes on your land, don't pay taxes on your house, don't pay taxes on your car. The real owners are going to come and collect it. You're just paying rent on what you already own. That income tax they keep sucking out of your paycheck, that's interest on the loan of this debt-based currency that they have given you in lieu of actual payment backed in gold or silver or whatever. So It would be. It would be a patriot's wet dream if that whole system were to be destroyed and our wealth restored back to us and actually have a allodial title to what we own instead of having possession in fee simple, which is where we're at now. So it's a very hopeful thing. After 150 years of this system, I have my doubts that it's ever going to be broken, and it's just not looking good to me right now. But if you want to throw a prayer out there, that might be a good thing to pray for. Well, that's all I got for today. Just thought I'd hit a few more things since I've taken a couple of days off to sort of digest everything that was going down so quickly. I love every one of you. Please like, share, subscribe, and after you subscribe, click that little dinger bell and have it notify you of all of my up and coming videos. Love you, everyone. God bless you. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye now.